Eric Cantor is here, Moelis and Company Vice Chairman and Managing Director, also former House Majority Leader. So let's take on the tax plan before we get into some of the other issues. What do you think the chances are, once this hits the Senate, that this goes anywhere?
Well, first of all, you got to take a look at the vote last night in the House. I mean, you have a pretty resounding endorsement of this bill. And so I do think that gives it some tailwinds when it gets to the Senate. I think there's maybe some bruised egos and there's other sort of dynamic on the part of certain senators that will come into play. Ultimately, my sense is it passes. And again, this is just sort of a look into what we're in store for at the end of 25, because these provisions that are now being restored, if you will, were a result of what I call sort of the games around what the D.C. world calls pay-fors in the Tax Cut Jobs Act in 2017. And if you look at it, it's about R&D expensing. Like, that's always been an expense where you pay for the R&D and then you expense it. And in order to come up with a reduced sort of cost of the bill, they played some games. Never did, I think, the business community or the Republicans think that that would sustain itself. Similarly, on the child tax credit side, I think the Democrats took the view back then there's no way Republicans would allow that to expire. And I think we're seeing that. And if you saw the difficulty around this time, just imagine what we're in store for at the end of 25 when the whole thing expires.
I don't know if you saw our segment with Robert Frank about the SALT tax.
Yep.
What do you think the chances are that comes back?
Well, see, the interesting thing is in 25, the caps are removed. So the incentive for the SALT crowd, right. I know that the table I'm speaking to, very interested in seeing that cap removed.
New York, yeah.
Right. So, that's adds to the difficulty that we're going to see in 25, in addition to the fiscal stress that the country's going to be under at that point, because you've had, this interest rate rise, and you see the increased costs of the debt for the federal government all come into roost in 25.
Okay, put your banker hat on and your former political hat on, and let's talk about Jay Powell for a second and what he said yesterday.
Yep.
And we keep talking about sort of how the election plays into this little birdie in the back of people's heads. Does the Fed, think about that as they get closer to the presidential election? Can you make a move? Can you not make a move? How do you see this?
Well, listen, I do think that there's a human nature aspect to this that, wherever Jay Powell's sort of affinities are politically, you can't say he's not a human being. So there's bias. But I do think that there is also the desire institutionally for him to want to restore the credibility of the Federal Reserve. And so, politically, look, you've already begun to see now the reporting reflected in the numbers that the economy seems to be smoothing out, let's say. Look, from the banker perspective, I would say you just look at the numbers. I mean, investors have been struck by this historic increase in rates over the last almost 2 years. And you look at the numbers, M&A, the deal count is down.
Right.
And if you think, okay, yesterday you heard the chairman didn't say when, but he clearly leaned into, hey, we're going to be discussing rate cuts going forward. So if the direction of traffic is really changed, I think investors, especially the sponsor community, that has been particularly impacted by the rate hikes and the uncertainty, I think going forward, we're going to see a much more positive deal environment. That's my sense. And if you also look at the fact that the amount of dry powder that's sitting there, especially on the sponsor community, it's way up from where it was in 19. It's even, I think, 8-9% up from where it was last year.
Yeah, and James Gorman of Morgan Stanley said before that if rates come down, you'll see the floodgates open in terms of deal making. I'm wondering, though, if the political calendar factors into that cadence of deal making as we head lower on rates, but we enter the political cycle.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. How much can the election then hold up, if you will, deal activity? And my sense is the earlier, if we see an uptick in the M&A market earlier and there's some momentum that comes that way, I sense that there's so much out there about the election. The momentum, I think, will overtake whatever uncertainty there is around the election. I think we're going to go forward. But we'll see. We've got to see some momentum coming relatively soon in the M&A market.
But is the Republican Party still viewed as a party that is in favor of business? I mean, what this tax bill has underscored is that it may not be anymore. It may be Republicans that defeat this bill in the Senate.
You know, it's, Melissa, that's a great point. You know, my party is now no longer the sort of we used to call it Main Street Republican, there for business, for growth in the economy. I mean, it has taken a much more populist turn. There's no question. Donald Trump has remade the Republican Party. I mean, we're a party that really is much more in line with what maybe the working man or woman.
So is that in line with your views?
Well, listen, I mean, Andrew, you know, I am a limited government, fiscal conservative, and believe in free markets. So, you know, when we hear folks on my side of the aisle talk about where government should be spending money, where government should choose to allocate resources, I find that objectionable, because I've seen what happens when you put Washington in charge of allocating capital. That's not a good thing.
And there's not a lot of attention on the specifics, really, with at a rematch between Trump and Biden. But a 10% across-the-board tariff, is that going to get a little more focus?
Right.
That Trump is proposing?
Right. I mean, I think as we and listen, we were just talking earlier about what the discussion was in Davos. I mean, there's a lot of reticence about the business climate in China. And if you add on a 10% tariff, I mean, we are off and running to, I think, an economic cold war.
Where do you think the business, we got to run, but where do you think the business community is vis-a-vis this election? There were a lot of members of the GOP who were looking for an alternative to Trump, right? Trying to give money to Nikki Haley. I don't know what you think the handicap on that is going to be, but ultimately, do they fall in line with Trump? Do they not vote? Do they vote for Biden? How do you see this?
Look, I still think my party has in its DNA lower taxes, less regulation, more free market activity. You'll never get that from the Democratic side.
And so you would take the Trump version of whatever that is.
I will take that policy version and the Republican candidate over what the other side is offering up, because there is an adversarial relationship now. It's not just, hey, we're going to go and try and get what we can. It used to be the Democrats were there for the unions.
And I know we got to go, but what do you make of all of the folks who worked with Trump, the Mattises, the Barrs, who think, you know what, from just either a character perspective or something else, that unto itself is dangerous?
Well, listen, I think, Andrew, writ large, the majority of the voters in this country have said they don't like the choice. And that brings up the real point that we have too little participation in the primary process. Less than 10% of voters are participating, but they're making the choice for us. That's the real issue that we have to address going forward.